This brain hack can make you emotionally intelligent or an absolute monster. What you're about to discover won't just sharpen your mind, it could completely change the way you think, feel, and interact with the world. And once you understand how it works, there's no going back. Most people go through life in a reactive state. Something happens, they feel something, and then they act on it. No space, no pause, no awareness. But what if you could step outside of that loop? What if, instead of being a prisoner of your emotions, you could become the observer of them? That's what metacognition allows you to do. To think about your thinking, to watch your emotions instead of being consumed by them. And when you start doing that, everything changes. You begin to notice that what you feel isn't always what it seems. Anger might actually be embarrassment. Frustration might really be exhaustion. That anxious pit in your stomach? Maybe it's not about the meeting. Maybe it's about feeling like you're not enough. Most people don't stop long enough to ask those questions. They feel something and react. But when you learn to pause, to label the emotion, to ask where it's coming from and what it really means, you take back control. You create space between the emotion and the action. And in that space, you gain power. Emotional intelligence doesn't start with control. It starts with awareness. You can't manage what you don't understand. That's why labeling your emotions accurately is so important. Instead of just saying, I'm mad, ask yourself, am I mad because of what happened or because I felt powerless? Am I upset with this person or am I just mentally drained? The moment you name the real emotion, you reduce its grip. You activate the rational part of your brain. You stop being pulled by automatic responses and start making deliberate choices. And this doesn't just help you with yourself. It changes how you see others. You'll start to notice that someone acting angry might really be scared. Someone who seems distant might actually be ashamed. That awareness gives you an edge, not to manipulate, but to understand, and sometimes to lead. Because people feel seen when you understand what they're not saying out loud. Try this. The next time you feel something intense, pause. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? What triggered it? Is that really the full story, or is there a deeper emotion beneath it? And what belief or need might be behind that? Do this even for 30 seconds a day, and you'll start noticing shifts. You'll start noticing yourself. And when you do that consistently, you become more than just reactive. You become intentional, strategic, calm in chaos. Here's what most people never realize. Your emotions are not the enemy. They're information. But only if you slow down enough to listen. If you don't, they run the show. If you do, they become your compass. Because at the end of the day, unlabeled emotions control you. Labeled emotions serve you. And this is just the beginning. Because if your emotions can be rewired through awareness, what about your thoughts? What about the stories you tell yourself every day that you don't even know are running the show? In the next part, we're diving deeper. Because your thoughts are building your reality. And it's time to take back control. Most people assume their thoughts are facts, that if something pops into their head, it must be true, or at least worth listening to. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not every thought is yours. Not every thought is true, and not every thought deserves your attention. We think we're the authors of our thoughts, but most of them are just old programming. Things we've absorbed from childhood, from trauma, from fear. Thoughts like, I'm not good enough. They probably hate me. Why even try? These aren't deep truths. They're mental leftovers, reflexes, notifications we never unsubscribe from. And unless you start paying attention, they'll run your life from the background. That's where thought tracking comes in. It's the mental version of setting up a security system. You don't just let any thought in to rearrange the furniture. You check its ID. You ask, where did this come from? Is it useful? Is it rooted in fear or fact? Let's say a thought hits you. I'm going to fail at this. Most people would just feel discouraged or quit. But someone practicing metacognition stops and asks, is that belief based on any real evidence? Or is it a reflex from a past failure I never unpacked? Who told me I wasn't good enough? And why did I believe them? The moment you question the thought, you take its power away. You break the loop. You shift the brain from reacting emotionally to thinking strategically. Here's a simple way to start. Keep a thought journal. Each night, write down one negative or limiting thought you had during the day. Then break it down. Where did it come from? Is it based in truth? What belief would serve you better? Do this for 30 days and you'll start seeing patterns, not just in your mind, but in your life. Because your thoughts aren't just private whispers, they're blueprints. They shape your mood, your choices, your relationships, your outcomes. If you want to change your life, you have to start by changing what thoughts you allow to stay. And once you build this habit, you become something rare. You become someone who chooses their thoughts, not just receives them. You become someone who can hear their inner critic and respond, not collapse. Someone who can hold space between stimulus and response, and in that space, shape a new reality. That's the real magic of metacognition. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious. It's about finally realizing that you don't have to believe every story your mind tells you. And when you stop blindly believing your thoughts, you become unshakable. You become someone no fear can control, no doubt can derail. And that's when you begin to write your own story, not just live out someone else's script. In the next part, we're going to take this even further. Because once you've mastered your internal world, you'll start to see patterns in the world around you. The dynamics between people, the power games, the invisible signals. You'll stop just participating in conversations and start seeing the whole board. That's where we're headed next. People think conversations are just about words, but there's so much more. Every interaction is layered. Energy, intention, emotion, all playing out in ways most people don't even notice. But once you develop metacognitive awareness, you don't just hear what someone says. You start to notice the micro reactions, the tension in their jaw, the flicker in their eye, the pause before they speak. These are signals, clues, giving away what's really going on beneath the surface. And most of the time, people don't even know they're leaking them. This is where metacognition becomes social intelligence, strategic observation. You're not just in the conversation, you're watching the conversation unfold from above. You're listening to the words, but also reading what's being left unsaid. You're noticing who's leading, who's submitting, who's mirroring who. You begin to feel where the power is in the room, who has it, who's trying to take it, and who's quietly giving it away without realizing it. And the more you notice, the more patterns you begin to see. That person who laughs a little too loudly at someone else's idea, that's not just humor. That might be a power play. That colleague who constantly interrupts, they're not just enthusiastic, they're trying to establish dominance. That friend who gets suddenly quiet when you succeed, maybe it's not humility, maybe it's hidden resentment. Once you start to see these things, conversations stop feeling random. They become strategic terrain. You're not walking in just trying to be liked. You're walking in with awareness, with clarity. You're tracking the emotional weather in the room and choosing how to move through it. You become the calmest person in the chaos, not because you're manipulative, but because you're aware. And this awareness, it can be used to lead, to connect, to disarm. But it can also be twisted. It's a double-edged sword, because the same awareness that helps you understand others can be used to control them. The same skill that lets you read a room can be turned into a tool to dominate it. That's the line we're about to cross. In the next part, we explore what happens when metacognition is used not to understand, but to manipulate. When clarity becomes control, and when empathy is replaced with strategy. That's when the mastermind becomes something else. That's when they become a monster. Some people use this awareness as a way to connect, to navigate with care, to lead gently. But others, they sharpen it into a weapon. They use it to test your responses, to map your emotional landscape, to find the buttons that control you. And they push them, not by accident, but by design. These people aren't reactive. They're calculating. They don't just observe your reactions, they shape them. They don't argue, they plant thoughts. They don't shout, they go quiet, letting your mind do the damage for them. This is the dark side of metacognition. When someone becomes so attuned to emotion, to thought, to power, and chooses to use that insight without empathy, they know how to mirror vulnerability to gain your trust. They say the right words, reflect your fears, offer validation, not because they care, but because they're building emotional leverage. Every weakness you reveal becomes currency. Every confession becomes a tool. Over time, they shape your reality so subtly, you believe it was your idea all along. You've probably seen this before. A manipulative partner who says no one will ever love you the way I do. A boss who praises you only when you agree. A friend who makes you feel guilty when you grow. This isn't coincidence. It's strategic. They create highs and lows, emotional roller coasters that feel like intimacy but are really control. They reward obedience, punish resistance, withdraw affection, then flood you with it when you comply. It feels like love, but it's addiction. It feels like connection, but it's a loop. And sometimes the most dangerous ones don't even look powerful. They show up as helpless, as broken, as needing you to save them. But they're taking notes. Every time you help, every time you lean in, every time you explain yourself, they're watching, waiting, until one day you say no and suddenly you're the villain. Suddenly, you're the heartless one. They play the victim so well, you start to doubt your own memory. This is the monster hidden behind the mastermind, the one who wears understanding like a mask, the one who uses emotional intelligence not to connect, but to control. And the scariest part, it all starts with the same skill, awareness, which means the potential to become that exists in all of us. So the real question isn't just how do I become more self-aware? The question is, who do I become once I am? In the next part, we're going to talk about how to walk that edge, how to use metacognition to empower, not dominate, to lead, not manipulate, and how to stay rooted in empathy, even when your mind becomes a weapon. And sometimes the most dangerous ones don't even look powerful. They show up as helpless, as broken, as needing you to save them. But they're taking notes. Every time you help, every time you lean in, every time you explain yourself, they're watching, waiting, until one day you say no, and suddenly you're the villain. Suddenly you're the heartless one. They play the victim so well, you start to doubt your own memory. This is the monster hidden behind the mastermind, the one who wears understanding like a mask, the one who uses emotional intelligence not to connect, but to control. And the scariest part, it all starts with the same skill, awareness, which means the potential to become that exists in all of us. So the real question isn't just how do I become more self-aware? The question is, who do I become once I am? In the next part, we're going to talk about how to walk that edge, how to use metacognition to empower, not dominate, to lead, not manipulate, and how to stay rooted in empathy, even when your mind becomes a weapon. Mastering metacognition doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming emotionally wise. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending to be above it all. It's about knowing exactly what's happening inside your head and heart and choosing your response with intention. That's real power. Not control over others, but control over yourself. So how do you build that? How do you strengthen your mind without losing your heart? You practice. Not just once, not just when things are calm. You train it like a muscle, especially when life is messy. Start by observing your thoughts from a third-person point of view. Literally refer to yourself like an outside narrator. Instead of saying, I'm freaking out about this meeting, say, she's feeling anxious because she's afraid of being judged. That shift in language pulls you out of the emotional spiral and brings in perspective. It gives your rational mind a chance to step up and say, wait, is this fear helpful or just familiar? Then reflect daily. At the end of each night, rewind your day like a movie. Where did you get triggered? Did you react or respond? What belief drove that behavior? What could you do differently next time? Keep a mental journal, not just of what happened, but of how you handled it. This is how awareness turns into growth. And finally, practice in real time. During your next conversation, split your awareness. Be present, yes, but also observe. What are they trying not to say? What's their energy actually communicating? Where is the power in the room? You're not being distant. You're becoming sharp, strategic, clear, but don't lose the heart in the process. That's what separates the master from the manipulator. Intent, empathy, integrity. Metacognition doesn't make you dangerous. Your choices do. So choose to be conscious. Choose to lead with presence, not pretense. Choose to understand so you can connect, not control. Because when you do, something incredible happens. You stop being reactive. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to provoke or manipulate. You become calm in chaos, a thinker in a world of reactors, a strategist in a world of pawns. That's what it means to master your mind. Not to become cold but clear, not to disconnect, but to become deeply grounded. Not to escape emotion, but to rise above it and lead with it instead of being led by it. That's the final level of this brain hack. Not just awareness, not just observation, but conscious, compassionate mastery. And the people who live there, they don't chase control. They embody it. So ask yourself, what would change in your life if you stopped being played and started playing with purpose? If you stopped reacting and started designing, that future version of you is already in there. The only thing standing in the way is whether you're ready to wake up and meet them.